Hello, and welcome to Short Stories. Today's short story is called The Mouse, the Bird, and the Sausage. It's one of the many stories that were recorded by the Grimm brothers way back in the 1840s. It's not one of their best stories, but I think it's kind of funny and surreal. Before I begin reading the story, I will read the vocabulary and example sentences. After I have finished reading the story, I will read 4 listening comprehension questions. Enjoy! Vocabulary: roommate, roommate. I and my roommate rent an apartment downtown. Make up one's mind. Make up one's mind. He made up his mind to quit his job. Indignant. Indignant. He became very indignant because his boss never gave him a promotion. Cave in. Cave in. She caved in to her son's demand for a new bike. Beats me. Beats me. What can we do to stop climate change? Beats me. Get the hang of something. Get the hang of something. After a few tries, she finally got the hang of driving. Lament. Lament. I lamented my mistake. The heck? The heck? Where the heck did I put my cell phone? Now the story. Once upon a time, there was a cottage in the forest. In that cottage lived a mouse, a bird, and a sausage. You may be surprised to hear that these 3 unusual roommates lived together happily. They were able to do so because each one had a defined role and purpose. Every morning started out the same. The bird would wake up early to find a worm to eat for his breakfast. Afterwards, Mr. Bird would spend the rest of the morning collecting firewood. The mouse would wake up next and sweep the house, make the beds, and fetch the water from the well. The sausage woke up last. His job was to cook the food. In this task, he was aided by Miss Mouse, who used the firewood that Mr. Bird brought home to make a fire. Mr. Sausage was a great cook despite not having any hands. He used his own grease to lubricate the skillet. After the fire was started, but before he threw in the food, he would roll around in the skillet to oil it up. Miss Mouse and Mr. Bird loved Mr. Sausage's cooking. One day, while Mr. Bird was out collecting firewood, he became very thirsty. It was a very hot day, and the sun's rays were beating down on poor Mr. Bird's head. He stopped by a puddle to get a drink. While there, he started chatting with the other birds. "You work too hard," said the first bird. "Why do they make you do all the sweaty work outside?" said the second bird. The more Mr. Bird thought about it, the more unfair it seemed. "Why can't I stay inside and sweep or cook?" he said to himself. "Sweeping is easy, and Mr. Sausage only has to stand in one place." Mr. Bird made up his mind. He was going to ask his roommates to change roles. When Mr. Bird arrived at the cottage, he immediately started complaining about his job. "Why don't you go collect firewood, Mr. Sausage?" he indignantly asked. "And Miss Mouse, you can cook the food. I'll stay inside for once and sweep." The three argued for some time, but Mr. Bird was so stubborn that Miss Mouse and Mr. Sausage gave up and caved to his demands. The next morning began in an unusual way. Mr. Sausage woke up first to go out and collect firewood. He was feeling very sleepy, so he stumbled around a lot. Mr. Bird woke up next to begin his cleaning duties. He found it very difficult to operate the broom with just one foot, but he tried his best. Miss Mouse woke up last to begin cooking, but Mr. Sausage had not yet returned with the firewood. "Where's Mr. Sausage?" asked Miss Mouse. "Beats me," replied Mr. Bird as he spread dust all over the rug. "Oops," he said. "I guess I still haven't gotten the hang of sweeping yet." Miss Mouse frowned and said, "Never mind that now. Go to the well and get some water." Mr. Bird dropped the broom and flew to the well. At the well was a bucket and a rope. Mr. Bird had never fetched water before, but he thought, how hard could it be? He used one foot to pick up the bucket and drop it down the well. Unfortunately, fetching water, just like sweeping, requires two free hands with functioning fingers, which Mr. Bird did not have. The bucket dropped to the bottom of the well along with the rope. "Oops," exclaimed Mr. Bird as he peered into the dark well. "I guess I'd better go down there and get it." Mr. Bird climbed down the well, which he found very uncomfortable. "Ow!" he shouted as he scraped his foot on a sharp rock. He then fell into the water below. Splash! "Well, at least I have the bucket now," he said to himself. But now Mr. Bird had a new problem. He was all wet, and birds cannot fly when their feathers are damp. "If only I was a duck, then this wouldn't be a problem," complained Mr. Bird. He tried to climb out, but his foot hurt too much, and he was bleeding. "What have I done? I'm trapped," he lamented. Meanwhile, Miss Mouse was back at the cottage trying to cook. There was no firewood yet, so Miss Mouse improvised by smashing a chair and using that to fuel the stove. After she got the fire started, she looked at the skillet and realized that she didn't know how to cook. "How does Mr. Sausage do it?" she wondered. "Oh, I know. He rubs his body on the skillet to grease it up." Miss Mouse jumped into the skillet and started rolling around. "Ow! This is kind of hot. It's kind of really hot," she said as she smelled burnt hair. "Youch!" she yelled as she jumped out of the skillet. "Water! I need water!" But there was no water. So Miss Mouse rolled around in the pile of dust that Mr. Bird had left on the floor. Fortunately for Mr. Bird, someone eventually came to the well to get a drink. It was Mr. Weasel, and he was very thirsty. "Who the heck is down there?" he asked. Mr. Bird shouted back and explained his predicament. Mr. Weasel agreed to help him. He climbed down the well and carried Mr. Bird back to the top on his back along with the bucket and rope. "Thanks for the help. You are a true friend," said Mr. Bird. "I'm not your friend," said Mr. Weasel. "I was terribly thirsty, and you were blocking the well." It was then that Mr. Bird noticed the weasel wearing a hat that looked just like Mr. Sausage's hat. "Why are you so thirsty?" inquired Mr. Bird. "I just ate the biggest sausage of my life. It was delicious, but a little salty," replied the weasel. Mr. Bird's jaw dropped. He didn't know what to do or say, so he just hobbled home. When Mr. Bird arrived at the cottage, he saw large puffs of black smoke coming out of the windows. "Mrs. Mouse!" he exclaimed, and he rushed inside to save her. He pulled her out of the house and revived her. "What happened?" he asked. Miss Mouse coughed and said, "I tried to cook like Mr. Sausage does, and I got burned. Then the fire got out of control, and the whole cottage caught fire." As Mr. Bird watched the flames devour his home, he said to himself, "Oh, why did I ever listen to those other birds? Why didn't I just collect firewood? I had a place before, but now I have none." Listening comprehension questions. Number 1. What was the bird's job? A. Cooking. B. Cleaning. C. Collecting firewood. D. Fetching water. Number 2. Why didn't the bird like his job? A. It was too easy. B. It was too difficult. C. It was too boring. D. The pay was too low. What idea did the bird propose? A. That they switch jobs. B. That they all get new jobs. C. That they start their own business. D. That they kill the weasel. Question 4. What is the lesson of this story? A. Don't judge a book by its cover. B. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. C. Haste makes waste. D. Don't be jealous of other people's lives.